Snow moves softly across the glass roof, settling into the black iron ribs above you. Somewhere beneath the leaves, a flower that has slept for 20 years may open before dawn. And tonight, the greenhouse is yours alone. I'm Owen. I've been looking forward to sharing this warm corner of winter with you. The year is 1893. At 9:30, the senior gardener places a brass key in your palm and gives you 3 instructions. Keep the boiler fed. Clear the snow before its weight bows the glass. And if the white flower opens, record the exact hour. Mr. Bell closes your fingers over the key as if it is something warmer than brass. He is a broad, stooped man with silver in his beard and soil forever darkening the half-moons beneath his nails. All evening he has tried to pretend this is an ordinary watch, yet before leaving, he looks past you once more toward the far end of the conservatory, where a single pale bud hangs beneath a canopy of deep green leaves. "It did not open for my father," he says. "It did not open for Mr. Vale before him. But the glass was sweating this afternoon, and the sepals have begun to loosen. I think tonight may be the night." Outside, the wind lifts powder from the terrace and carries it through the light of his lantern. Beyond that small circle of gold, the gardens have vanished. Hedges, paths, stone urns, and the long lawn have all become one quiet field of white. Mr. Bell fastens his coat to the throat. "You will be quite safe in here. The bothy is 20 steps from the west door if you need me. But if it opens, do not trust the hall clock. Use the little clock beside the plant. It keeps better time." He hesitates, then adds one last thing. "The hour was never written down the first time. You ask why, but a gust scatters the question between you. Mr. Bell only gives the greenhouse door a firm pull to be certain the latch has caught. Then his lantern begins to move across the snow, slowly dimming until it passes behind the yew hedge and disappears. You turn the brass key in the lock. At once the storm seems to move farther away. If these quiet nights help you rest, you can subscribe and return for another one. And wherever you are listening from, you are welcome to leave a note for me to find in the morning. The conservatory receives you with its own weather. Warmth rests beneath the glass, moisture purls along the panes and travels downward in shining threads. Water ticks into copper trays. Leaves overlap above tiled paths, broad as serving platters in the palm house and fine as lace in the fernery. Somewhere in the pipes the boiler gives a satisfied knock. You hang your wool coat beside the door and stand for a moment in shirt sleeves, listening. The place is not silent, though it seemed so from outside. It breathes through vents and valves. It drips, settles, whispers, and occasionally lets fall a heavy drop from one leaf to another. You can already understand why Mr. Bell never calls it a building. He calls it the collection, as if the plants, the water, the heat, and the old ironwork together make one living thing. Before beginning your first round, you set your lantern on the potting bench and open the night ledger. The page bears tonight's date in Mr. Bell's careful hand, followed by a line waiting for your name. You dip the pen, sign beneath the date, and blot the ink with a square of pink paper. Then you carry the lantern toward the oldest part of the greenhouse. The white flower grows in a round bed at the meeting point of 3 glass corridors. Its leaves climb a cedar frame, then spill down in long, flat ribbons. Most are plain enough that a visitor might pass without noticing them. The bud is different. It hangs from a curved stem like a closed paper lantern, nearly the length of your hand, green at its base and pale at the tip. A small clock stands on a shelf beside it. The case is walnut, the face no wider than a teacup. Its black hands indicate 22 minutes before 10. Beneath the clock lies a second ledger, much older than the one by the door. The leather cover has softened at the corners. Inside are notes in several hands, beginning when the conservatory was built. Cuttings arrived from Madeira. A palm was lost after a cracked pipe. 3 orange trees survived the winter of 1854. The white flower appears only rarely in these pages, always under the name Moon Cup, though a faded paper label gives a longer Latin name that no one at the house now uses. You find the entry Mr. Bell mentioned, January 17th, 1873. Bud opened during the night watch. Full flower observed upon return. Exact hour unknown. The words are written in darker, less disciplined ink than the surrounding notes. Below them, another sentence has been added in pencil. Snowfall considerable. East Road impassable before dawn. There is room on the line where the hour ought to be. Someone even drew a short dash after the words opened at, then left the space empty. You look at the small clock. Its minute hand advances with a crisp little click. 9:43. If the Moon Cup opens tonight, you will finish a sentence that has waited 20 years. The thought is pleasant rather than heavy. There is nothing you must make the flower do. Your task is only to keep the conservatory warm, keep the glass clear, and be present if the moment comes. You take the thermometer reading first. 62 degrees in the central house, 58 by the fern beds. The soil beneath the Moon Cup is damp, but not wet. No water is needed. You write the figures in the ledger, replace the pencil in its groove, and begin your round. 6 rooms branch from the central house, palms to the south, ferns to the north, citrus and spring bulbs beyond. Beneath them all runs the low brick kingdom of the boiler. You visit it first. 3 steps descend from the potting room to a red door. When you open it, a dry mineral heat touches your face. The boiler occupies most of the chamber, black and rounded with polished brass fittings that shine in the lantern light. Beside it stands a coal bin filled nearly to the top. And beside the bin, Mr. Bell has left a mug, a blue enamel kettle, and a paper parcel tied with string. Inside the parcel are 2 thick slices of seed cake and a note for midnight. Tea in the brown tin. Do not forget to eat, merely because history may occur. You smile and set the note beneath the mug, where it will remain dry. The fire is healthy. You open the iron door just wide enough to see its orange interior, add 2 small shovels of coal, and wait until the new pieces catch. The flame settles around them. Warm air moves into the old pipes that wind under the beds and along the walls. Above you, the storm brushes a sleeve across the glass. At 10 minutes past 10, you return to the Moon Cup. The bud looks unchanged. You compare it with a sketch clipped inside the ledger. The drawing was made in 1873, probably after the flower had already opened. Dozens of narrow petals surround a white center, and the artist has taken such care with the lines that the blossom seems to give off light from the yellowed page. A small notation at the bottom reads, "Fragrance strongest during first hour." You lean closer to the closed bud. There is only the smell of warm leaves and wet stone. The snow deepens beyond the panes. It slides down the steepest sections of roof with a soft rushing sound, but along the lower glass it begins to collect. You light a second lantern and take the roof brush from its hooks. The brush is fixed to a pole twice your height. From inside the greenhouse, you press its padded head against the lowest panes and guide it upward. Snow releases in broad sheets. For an instant, each pane becomes perfectly dark, and then it clears, revealing the storm beyond. The work has an easy rhythm: lift, press, guide, release. The iron ribs reappear one by one. No great weight has gathered. Mr. Bell's warning was caution, not alarm. The conservatory was built for winters like this, and its angled roof lets most of the snow carry itself away. Still, you clear the shallow valleys where two sections meet, and you hear the glass give a small relieved tick as the burden slides free. At 11, the bud has changed. You are certain of it. The pale tip is no longer pressed tightly closed. One narrow seam has appeared between the outer sepals. It is little more than a shadow, yet it was not there before. You bring the lantern closer, careful not to warm the plant with the flame. Along the seam, something white shows from within. You open the ledger and write 11 o'clock. First separation visible at outer sepals. The pencil sounds unusually loud against the paper. For the next few minutes, you watch without moving. The flower does not perform for attention. Nothing else seems to change. At last you set the pencil down and continue the round, trusting that it has waited 20 years and can wait while you check the boiler. The coal has burned to a red bed. You add one shovel, then fill the kettle from the tap. Soon it begins to murmur on the iron plate. You spoon tea into the blue enamel pot and carry everything to a little table in the palm house. This is Mr. Bell's favorite place to take his break. 4 wicker chairs stand beneath the fan palms, though you need only one tonight. Through the high curved roof, snow spirals against the dark. From this side of the glass, it seems less like weather than a moving pattern, white threads passing through black air, while you sit among warm leaves with a mug between your hands. On the table lies a narrow wooden box you did not notice before. The lid is carved with the initials A.B. It is not locked. Inside are brass plant labels, spare nibs for the ledger pens, and several pieces of blue chalk. Beneath them rests a small photograph mounted on card. The picture shows the conservatory entrance after another heavy snow. A much younger Mr. Bell stands beside the door, straight-backed and clean-shaven, wearing an apron over his coat. Next to him is a young woman holding a lantern. Her face has blurred slightly because she must have moved while the shutter was open, but her smile remains clear. On the back, someone has written, Amos and Eleanor, the morning after the Moon Cup, January 1873. You look again at the photograph. Mr. Bell's first name is Amos. You have heard the housekeeper use it once or twice. Eleanor, you know, was his wife. Her name is still spoken gently at the estate, though she has been gone for 3 winters. The photograph returns to its place in the box. You close the lid and sit for another moment, listening to tea settle in the pot. The old ledger said the exact hour was unknown. The photograph said the morning after. Somewhere between those two facts lies the part Mr. Bell did not tell you. 3 seams are now visible. The outer green points have begun to ease backward, so slowly that movement cannot be seen from one moment to the next. Yet, each time you complete a task and return, the shape is new. The white within no longer appears as a line. It forms a small folded crown. You check the clock. 11:57, midnight arrives without bells. The hall clock in the distant house cannot be heard through the storm, and the little walnut clock makes no ceremony of the hour. Its minute hand simply joins the hour hand at 12, pauses for its ordinary click, and moves on. You write, midnight, outer sepals lifting, no fragrance yet. On your way back, you notice a drawer beneath the central writing shelf is slightly open. It catches against your sleeve. You push it closed, but something inside prevents it. When you pull the drawer out farther, you find a thick envelope curled against the back. Across the front, in the same uneven handwriting as the 1873 ledger entry, are the words Moon Cup Notes. A. Bell. The envelope contains no letter, only 4 folded pages covered with observations. Measurements of the bud, temperatures taken every quarter hour, a small map of the boiler pipes. On the last page, the orderly notes end at 1:40 in the morning. Then comes a final sentence, written diagonally as if in haste. Carriage bell heard on East Road, taking lantern and rope. There are no later measurements. You read it twice. The East Road runs along the low wall beyond the kitchen garden. In deep snow, its sunken middle can disappear completely. Perhaps a carriage slipped from it. Perhaps young Amos Bell left the warm conservatory to help. The old ledger now makes sense in part. Full flower observed upon return, exact hour unknown, but the photograph remains unexplained. Amos and Eleanor, the morning after the moon cup. At 12:20, the first scent reaches you. It is so faint you wonder if it comes from the citrus room. Then the warm air moves again, and the fragrance returns. Vanilla, clean linen, and something cool that reminds you of rain on stone. The moon cup has opened to the width of a small coin. Its inner petals are white, but not the flat white of paper. They hold a trace of cream near the base and catch the lamplight along their edges. The outer sepals continue to draw back, revealing layer after folded layer. You do not write an opening time yet. Mr. Bell was precise. If it opens, record the exact hour. A seam is not an open flower, and neither is a narrow cup. You decide that the moment will come when the inner petals release and the center can be seen. You add your definition to the ledger, so no one later will have to guess what you meant. Opening to be recorded when central stamens first become visible. The clock reads 12:23. You settle into a wicker chair from the Palm House, positioning it several feet from the plant. There is no reason not to be comfortable. A folded wool blanket rests on the back of the chair. You spread it over your knees and listen to the greenhouse move around you. At 12:31, another row of petals releases. They do not unfold together. One lifts, then another, each easing outward until the flower grows from a narrow cup into a pale star. You lean forward, watching for the first glimpse of its center. Not yet. At 12:36, the boiler knocks twice. Duty interrupts wonder in the most ordinary way. You leave the chair, mark your place in the ledger, and go below. The fire has settled lower than expected because one piece of coal has not caught cleanly. You break it with the poker, spread the glowing bed, and add 2 fresh shovels. The draft draws through the grate. Within a minute, the new coal takes flame, and the brass needle on the pressure dial returns to its proper mark. When you come upstairs, you stop in the doorway. The fragrance has filled the central house. It rests in the warm air without becoming heavy. The moon cup seems larger, bright enough that the lantern beside it is almost unnecessary. Its outer petals have spread wide, and the inner ones form a final closed circle around the center. You check the clock before approaching 12:42. One inner petal trembles. There is no breeze at the bed. but the petal lifts as lightly as a hand opening. Another follows opposite it, then a third. The pale stamens become visible between them. You look directly at the clock. 12:43. The minute hand has just settled on the mark. You say the time aloud once, so that the quiet itself seems to witness it. Then you take the pencil and write with careful pressure. January 18th, 1893. Moon cup opened at 12:43 in the morning. Central stamens visible. Temperature 61 degrees. Snow continuing. For 20 years, a blank waited in the greenhouse ledger. Now the new page holds its answer. A small movement passes over one leaf. You lift the lantern and find a moth resting there, no larger than your thumbnail. It may have been sleeping among the rafters, warmed into activity by the lamps. Its wings are the color of old parchment. It waits at the edge of the leaf while the flower opens, as if it too has kept the appointment. You do not disturb it. By 1 o'clock, the moon cup is fully open. At 1:30, the wind begins to soften. It happens gradually. The long pressure against the roof breaks into separate gusts. Snow falls more nearly downward. Through a cleared pane, you can see the dark shape of the yew hedge again. You take up the roof brush and clear the lower panes for the second time. The snow is lighter now, dry enough to slip away before the padded head fully reaches it. In the central house, you leave the pane above the moon cup untouched for a while. A thin layer of snow makes the glass pale, and beneath it the flower rests in a gentle reflected light. The moth has moved closer. It stands on the cedar frame, wings folded. You lower the lamps one by one in the rooms you are not using. The palm house dims first, then the forcing house, then the citrus room. There is enough heat without their flames, and the smaller circle of light makes the conservatory feel more sheltered. The moon cup, the ledger, your chair, and the little clock remain illuminated at the crossing of the paths. At 2, you descend to the boiler. The second slice of seed cake waits in its paper. You eat half while checking the gauges, and wrap the rest for morning. The fire needs only one shovel now. Outside conditions are easing, and the bricks have stored hours of heat. When you return upstairs, a shadow moves beyond the west door. It is followed by the amber light of a lantern. You lift the door bar and turn the key. Mr. Bell stands on the step with snow on his shoulders and a wool cap pulled low over his ears. He does not ask whether the flower opened. The fragrance reaches him as soon as the door moves. For a moment he closes his eyes. Then he stamps the snow from his boots and comes inside. You lock the door again while he removes his coat. He walks toward the central house without hurry, though one hand travels along the bench, as if he wants the certainty of something solid beneath it. The tea in the pot is still warm. You pour a mug and set it beside him. Mr. Bell stands before the moon cup. The flower is wide open, its pale petals untouched, its center bright in the low lamplight. The moth rests near the stem. For nearly a minute, Mr. Bell says nothing. Then he looks toward the clock. What hour? 12:43. You turn the ledger so he can read the entry. His finger follows the line once, stopping at the time. He nods, then lowers himself into the other wicker chair. The photograph and the old notes lie beside the book. You found those, he says. You tell him the drawer caught your sleeve. It always did stick in damp weather. He picks up the photograph by its corners. That was taken after the road cleared. We had been awake all night. He studies the young faces, then gives a quiet laugh. Eleanor said no one would believe she had spent her first visit to Wren House wrapped in sacking beside a boiler. We had proper blankets. She refused them because the sacking was warmer. Mr. Bell sets the photograph down. He tells the story simply. In January of 1873, he was 19 and trusted with his first night watch. The moon cup had never flowered at the estate. Every gardener in the county seemed to know it might open, and by midnight he had become so determined not to miss the moment that he barely left the bed to feed the boiler. At 1:40 he heard a carriage bell from the east road. The storm was louder than tonight's. He tried to convince himself the sound came from loose iron on the roof. Then he heard it again. He took a stable rope, 2 blankets, and the largest lantern. A small carriage had slid against the road wall. The driver had gone toward the orchard for help, leaving a young woman inside with a twisted ankle and snow entering through a broken window. That woman was Eleanor Harrow. Mr. Bell brought her to the only warm place he could reach, the conservatory potting room. By the time they returned, the moon cup stood open. "I had drawn the line for the hour," he says, touching the blank in the old book. "I remember looking at it and feeling I had failed the one duty anyone had trusted me with." Eleanor saw the blank and asked what it was for. When he explained, she said that if he had stayed to watch the flower, she would still be sitting in a broken carriage. The missing time was not a failure. It was evidence that he had chosen correctly. "She would never let me invent an hour later," he says, "not even an approximate one. A record is meant to say what you know." So the blank remained. Every winter afterward, when the first deep snow came, they drank tea in the palm house. They watched for another bud, though none appeared. Eleanor liked to say the plant had already done enough for them. Mr. Bell rests both hands around his mug. His expression is not sad exactly. It is the look of someone standing in a familiar room after many years and discovering that it has kept something safe for him. "I thought I ought to watch tonight," he says. "Then I thought perhaps I had been given my part already." He looks at your new entry again. "You stayed." You tell him there was nowhere else you needed to be. That answer seems to please him. For a while, you sit together without talking. The storm lowers to a hush. The boiler carries warmth beneath the floor. The moon cup's fragrance, strongest during its first hour, has mellowed into something softer. At 2:30, Mr. Bell rises to make a final inspection with you. He checks your temperature notes, tests the west latch, listens to the boiler, and rubs condensation from one roof pane with his sleeve. In the fernery, a holly berry taps the glass. "That troubled me for 3 winters," he says. "I trim it every autumn, and it finds its way back." He does not trim it tonight. By 3, the snow has nearly stopped. The clouds thin enough for a faint brightness to gather behind them. It is not dawn yet. The night simply becomes less black. Shapes return beyond the glass. The terrace rail, the yew hedge, the first low wall of the kitchen garden. Mr. Bell takes the older wicker chair and dozes beside the flower. His chin settles against his scarf. One hand remains loosely closed around the empty mug. You continue the watch. There is less to do now. The boiler is steady. No new snow loads the roof. The flower has reached its fullest point and seems almost still, though the tips of its outer petals have begun to relax. You enter one final set of measurements in the ledger. Bloom width, temperature, fragrance reduced after 2 hours. Small moth observed, species unknown. The moth opens and closes its wings once, as if acknowledging the note. Then you put down the pencil. The night no longer holds a question that needs you to chase it. The flower opened at 12:43. The empty line from 1873 has its story. Mr. Bell sleeps within the warm greenhouse, and beyond the glass, the road where he once carried his lantern lies quiet beneath new snow. You draw the blanket around your shoulders and settle deeper into the chair. Above you, drops travel slowly along the iron ribs. Some join other drops and grow heavy enough to fall. Some remain exactly where they are, holding a tiny upside-down reflection of the lamps. The conservatory breathes around you. Warmth rises from the pipes. Leaves turn by fractions toward the faint light beyond the roof. The last hyacinth shoots rest beneath dark soil. Oranges hang among polished leaves. Ferns uncurl so slowly that no eye could see the movement, though by morning they will have changed. Not everything needs to be witnessed at the instant it happens. The thought belongs to the room. The clock continues its patient work beside the moon cup. Each click is small and complete. It does not hurry toward morning. It keeps only the moment it has been given, then accepts the next. You let your breathing find the same easy measure. In, while the boiler warms the beds. Out, while the last snow settles on the hedge. In, while the white petals rest open in the lantern light. Out, while the whole estate sleeps beyond the glass. The chair supports your weight. The blanket is warm across your knees. Your work is finished except for being here, and being here requires almost nothing now. At some point, Mr. Bell wakes and quietly adds coal to the boiler. You hear the red door close below. Then his steps return along the tiles. He does not speak. He lowers the brightest lantern and leaves only the small lamp beside the ledger. The change is gentle. Shadows rise among the leaves. The glass roof becomes a pale arch overhead. The moon cup is no longer brilliant white, but soft and silver, as if it has taken some color from the snow outside. Mr. Bell places the old photograph inside the front cover of the ledger. He leaves the pages of notes with it. Then he writes a single sentence beneath your entry. Watch faithfully kept. The pen scratches once across the page. The blotting paper presses down. The book closes. You do not need to open it again tonight. The final hour passes almost without edges. You notice the sound of the wind only when it is gone. You notice the darkness only as it begins to lift. Behind the eastern wall, the sky turns from black to deep blue, and the snow on the roof takes on the same color. No bell announces the morning. The first sign is a sparrow landing on the iron gutter. Its feet make the faintest dry sound. It shakes snow from its wings, looks through the glass at the warm green world within, and tucks its head briefly beneath one feather. Even the sparrow seems willing to wait. You remain beneath the blanket as light gathers one pane at a time. The paths emerge. The labels beside the plants can be read without a lantern. Farther down the central corridor, the brass handle of the locked door catches the first dull gleam of day. The moon cup begins to close, its inner petals drawn nearer by degrees, not from cold or harm, but because its one night of flowering is complete. By afternoon it will hang quiet again. The gardeners will preserve a petal, take measurements, and perhaps try a cutting. Visitors may come from neighboring estates to see what remains. But the full flower belonged to the night watch. It belonged to the small clock at 12:43, to the moth on the cedar frame, to the tea growing cool in 2 mugs, and to the snow moving over the roof while the rest of the house slept. It belonged to you. Mr. Bell opens the west door at last. Morning air enters in a clean, narrow ribbon. It smells of snow and distant wood smoke. Beyond the step, the terrace is smooth except for the path he made from the bothy. Soon the household will wake. Someone will clear the kitchen walk. Someone will carry milk from the dairy. Smoke will rise from the chimneys, and word of the flower will travel from room to room. There is no need to hurry toward any of it. For another moment, you remain in the chair while the conservatory holds the last warmth of night. The rarest part was never only the flower. It was the long waiting without knowing, the useful work between each glance at the bud. The roof kept clear, the fire kept steady, the time written honestly when it came. It was a young gardener leaving wonder behind because someone needed help. And another gardener 20 years later, being trusted to stay. Mr. Bell stands at the open door, looking across the white garden. "Come along," he says softly. "The day can manage without us for another hour." He leads you not toward the main house, but across the short path to the bothy. Inside, a small stove burns low. 2 narrow bunks are made with wool blankets, and a kettle waits on the hob. Your coat hangs over your arm. Your boot sleeve melting crescents beside the door. Mr. Bell closes the shutters until the morning becomes only a thin line around their edges. The room is plain, warm, and quiet. You lie down without undressing further and pull the blanket to your shoulder. The pillow smells faintly of soap and cedar shavings. Through the wall, barely audible, the conservatory boiler gives one last familiar knock. The moon cup is safe, the hour is written. The mystery has been answered. Outside, fresh snow softens every path. Inside the bothy, the stove settles, the kettle murmurs, and the long night releases you gently into sleep.